beyond furious. So they broke this, I think, yesterday, saying the family of the slain kids are furious about this, but I'm not sure if there's anything they can do about it. Kohberger, the suspect of the highly anticipated murder trial, which is supposed to happen in 5 weeks or something, a victim's family member told Idaho Statesman they received a letter from the prosecution, right? Because the prosecution generally has to get victims' input or victims' next of kin's input when there is a plea deal, right? Like Victims' Bill of Rights, various states call them different things, but the victims have a say in it generally, or they'll have a requirement to check with the victims. What do they say? You might not have to do anything about it because you're the prosecutor, but you still at least let them know. Provided a copy of that letter to Statesman confirming the deal. The plea deal was first reported by News Nation Monday afternoon. Now, they've seen the letter, we haven't. Kohberger was arrested at the end of 2022, fatally stabbing a bunch of people, four first-degree murder charges, sentenced to death if he would have been convicted at trial. They had opening statements coming up, about a month, 6 weeks. Families of the victims met with the prosecutors last week to discuss the possibility of a plea deal. Prosecution said in a letter, weighed heavily in the decision-making process. So we did take a look at what they said, but they said, we cannot fathom the toll that this case has taken on your family, says the letter. This resolution is our sincere attempt to seek justice for your family. This agreement ensures that he will be convicted, he will spend the rest of his life in prison, and will not be able to put you and other families through the uncertainty of decades of post-conviction appeals. There is good finality to it. The victims were seniors, Kaylee, Madison, age 21, Xana, and Ethan, all murdered. 3 women lived in the Moscow home with 2 female roommates who went unharmed. Chapin was Kernoodle's boyfriend. All 4 victims were students. Insane case. 30-month-long case which thrust Idaho into the national spotlight. Spanned several states. Remember they tried to find that dude? Finally caught him. Tailing him. Pulled him over on traffic stuff. The plea deal. The defense requested an offer from the prosecution. What would you give us? His defense attorneys are like, all right, we're going to get hosed on this thing. We'll take the death penalty off the table. He'll plead guilty to all charges. 4 first-degree murder counts and an additional charge of felony burglary. So he's not getting second-degree murder. He's not getting like a homicide, like a negligent homicide or something like that. It's like first-degree murder. They got him on those. That's what they would have wanted to get him on at trial. So that's a victory for the prosecution, obviously. And an additional charge of felony burglary. Now, he's expected to appear on Wednesday, tomorrow, 11 a.m. for a change of plea hearing, according to the family. Kohberger pleads guilty is expected to likely be sentenced in late July, with the agreed-upon sentence being life in prison, according to the letter. If he doesn't, the trial would proceed as planned. Now, as part of the deal, he'll also waive the right to appeal and will never be eligible for parole. The trial court administrator and the spokesperson for Idaho declined to comment. When reached by phone, the county prosecuting office also declined to comment. There's a gag order on the case. Now, one family's furious. The Gonclaves family been advocates for the death penalty to be applied. As we know, takes decades, just to be clear about that. We earlier this week, I think, read the letter or read the case, I think it was a Supreme Court case, about the death penalty. Yeah, we read Clarence Thomas's dissent. Remember that? A good dissent. You may disagree with the death penalty, but if Texas says there's a death penalty, then you can do it. So just let them do it, right? Get out of the way, essentially. So here, there's no equivalent, they say, aside from the death penalty for someone convicted of murder. They said this is the only option. We are beyond furious at the state of Idaho. They failed us. Hours later, they reiterated their frustration, saying they've done everything they could to push for the death penalty for Kohberger, having fought harder than anyone could ever imagine. And so I think that one in Clarence Thomas's case, that guy committed his murders like in 1995, 1996, and the Supreme Court still gave him additional time. Right? Yeah, if you want to go investigate your DNA evidence as part of your investigation, fine. And they gave more time to do it. So, in other words, if they want the death penalty to happen anytime soon, Kohberger's probably wouldn't get the death penalty for 30 years. So you might say, okay, that's fine, we'll wait, but that is the truth of it, and there will be appeals, and it would just be a lot. In terms of finality, how do you deal with that? And I don't know. I've never had a loved one murdered, and I hope not to have to experience that, and then we pray for the family. But how do you bring finality to a case? How do you ensure and minimize the risk? Looking at this from a prosecutor's position, that he does not walk. Maybe there's something up with the case. Maybe the case is a little wonky. Maybe they got some weird witnesses, or their forensic expert who got that cell phone data has got a little bit of weird stuff going on in his background. You're like, what's he doing at weekends at 2 a.m? What is that? Whatever. Edwina, a criminal defense attorney, said the writing was on the wall for Kohberger in terms of the death penalty. He would have been eliminated. That may have led to some addition, and I don't know how quickly things go in Idaho, but the last one we saw that reached the Supreme Court was about 30 years. That may have led to some additional conversation between the defense team and Kohberger that he could expect no other sentence with a conviction. Says, these are dice I would not want to roll with a client. Maybe you get an anti-death penalty juror, but you also may not, and probably not based on what this dude did. Given the series of rulings against his attorneys, which included several to take the death penalty off the table, they said this is a victory for them, for the defense, because he's not going to get eliminated. And so they're looking at it like almost a certainty that he's going to get the death penalty. But now he'll get life in prison, and we'll see how that goes for him, and how many friends he has who knows that he murdered a bunch of innocent students in their beds. Sick story, but coming to a resolution. Looks like we'll have a plea deal tomorrow, and we'll see what happens in the aftermath. But peace to those families and prayers their way.